capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know,
It's
Zach.
a tough one. I
It's
know.
really hard.
And maybe
Yes.
comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. Tonight, as per usual, we have Dan Plaat on the show, and we are going to continue our series on looking at utopias. And we've been looking at ones that have been tried to be implemented. We've analyzed, how close they get to their vision, what they're shooting for, and how things have gone for people who may be interested in starting their own. How are you doing tonight, Dan?
Pretty good, pretty good. Been having a few good weeks. January's been okay. Haven't accomplished everything, but I'm meeting
Sure.
with people. It's way more I'm way more motivated than I was last month.
Very good.
Ago, as I've got new people using this studio, and meeting with more people to share the load. So I think I have more
Very
hope
cool.
that by summer, it just won't be me managing things.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's good to see.
Next up is arrange for a social event, dinner out or something
Oh,
for
cool.
all the producers. So we basically have 15 shows with our local station. So
15. Very
Yeah.
good.
4 of them being
It's
live.
quite respectable. Yeah,
And
very cool.
this week in the show, I'm looking forward to. I've set up an interview with the people from the local Satanic Temple.
Ooh, that should be a fun one.
Their recent effort has been a black cat adoption drive,
Oh, that's nice.
particularly raising funds for the $100 upfront cost of adopting a cat.
Sure.
The flea check, the collar, the
Yeah,
registration.
the medications.
So, and black cats, we can maybe assume, usually passed over in pet shelters. So
Yep.
we'll pay, but you have to adopt a black cat.
That's really
Something
cool.
like that, yeah. Now, also a word on utopianism. We're discussing not just the kind of real life, but just a reminder from old writing that utopia, like any type of politics, is an ongoing process, or dialectical materialism. It's an ongoing process. You do, or anarchism. It is, you do utopianism. You do not. We're not going to get there, but we're going to practice utopianism
Right.
as a means of having hope, not just. And I'm also working off of Ernest Bloch is the writer's name. He was born in the 19th century, contemporary of Marx, but then died in the 60s. So he was a contemporary at the Frankfurt School, but he was too orthodox for the Frankfurt School because he was still like a Marxist, and then or actually like Leninist, but he was too heterodox to get along with any of the Orthodox Marxists in the East German Republic,
Hmm.
so which is where he's from, Mannheim. And
Interesting.
so he was kind of he was like the great what is it, infidel, it's just hated by all.
Heretic.
um
Yeah.
but heretic, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the what I remember from the guy writing an essay for Zero Books about him was his formal definitional difference between being an optimist, which is to kind of assume things are going to work out, almost in the kind of when you're doing certain historical materialism where you just assume things are going to get better, or if the conditions are right, revolution happens, as some MLs do, and they sound they sound silly. And being hopeful, hope is conditional that you'll do something. things could work out, but we have to do something. We have to make it happen.
For sure.
Which is a good kind of turnaround when talking about, like, say, Star Wars. Rebellions are built on hope. We have to hope that things can be better before we can act to make them better. Hey, James.
I would agree.
Yeah. So I've shared. It's not utopian, but I wanted to do something, kind of some centrist bashing, I guess. The
Always
first
up for that.
video is from The Economist. This
Ooh.
publication has been a stalwart of liberal perspectives in the UK for practically over a century. They are they're smart. They investigate the possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
and they try all kinds of things as far as, like, looking at what works and what people are doing, and discover no solutions whatsoever to any problem.
Isn't that funny how that works out?
They are, in fact, maybe this is why it's a good explanation. They are the optimists. Things will work out because markets, liberal values are just inherently right, and things will work out if they're followed. Um, and no one really need do anything. In fact, but it's mostly people that are getting in the way of good things happening. So,
Mm-hmm.
so this is about, the video is how to make poor areas richer.
Ooh.
This completely ignores that liberal economics is a zero-sum game. Um,
Yeah.
well, some areas are richer because other areas are poor. Um, because they're mostly talking about Rust Belt cities, referring to poor areas as areas that have deindustrialized. They had an industry, maybe they're really prosperous for 50 years, where everyone who lived there could have a steady and secure working class job. Even Albany, I just one of the producers kind of told her some of her story, or at least her perspective on poverty and helping people. Uh, I won't. I don't want to bash her or anything, but I was holding my tongue, uh, not wanting to argue with her because she is just a very kind of fed up kind of person. And but, like, her family, could, when referring to people in the black working class in the mid-century, at least up here in Albany, New York, in the north, um, they could work a working class job like custodian at a hospital, and earn enough and save enough that they could buy their house, or
Mm-hmm.
buy a house, and then eventually, after another 20 years, buy a place in the suburbs, and or rather, their children would then have the leg up to move out of Albany. But enough of those, and she sees it as many liberals do. She sees it as the people with the work ethic and following the right values succeed, and then they leave an
Yep.
area, which leaves a vacuum to be filled, or it
Mm-hmm.
only leaves the failures, or the people who don't have the right values, the
Yeah.
ghetto people. The
Right.
ghetto is made by the people, not the redlining or anything else.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
It's always down to individual and their
yeah, she
decisions.
she sees it that way, which, I'm not going to argue, because she's very much a certain person about it, um,
Mm.
and so I'm not going to argue her any out of any of it. Um, because even when she's just explaining why she doesn't like, the way she feels about it, it sounds like she's ranting, like she's already angry. I'm like, well, I'm not going to make her more upset by disagreeing. Um,
So
so
I'm not
yeah,
seeing the video in the links you sent there.
in the private chat,
Yeah,
it's the
I see
first
the
one.
one, Real News, American Climate Rebels.
Oh, no. I don't know what. Huh?
That,
Oh,
unless,
okay. I see. That I must have got it. Okay, I must have got it wrong. All right. Ignore that one.
yeah, no
Um,
problem.
this should be the actual link at the bottom.
Alrighty.
Yeah. I don't know why did I have that one. That's a different bookmark, but
Yeah,
it's the
no
one.
problem.
It's one after it.
No.
Oh, it's the Co-op Jackson one. So that's
Yeah.
that's when we do Co-op Jackson,
Right.
because that's a longer one. But we're not gonna watch all of it. But that's gonna be its own thing.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Many across the rich world are feeling the pinch, and it's hitting hardest in its poorest regions.
It's almost like we're not meant to have those opportunities.
In countries like Britain and America, regional inequality is already ingrained. Now rising prices are making it much worse.
In much of the world now, divergence is a fundamental fact.
Although globalization benefited many in well-off countries, large areas have been left in the lurch for decades.
Our political classes have no idea about the scale of the problem.
And it's not just those in declining places who stand to lose.
It costs the country a fortune every single year.
People revolt in the ballot box, and that starts to become extremely dangerous.
As the cost of living
Now it's costing the
prices
country,
spikes, how can left
not
behind areas
corporations, anything.
Uh-huh.
But the poverty, the de-investment is from the private sector.
Right.
So
Yeah, they just
as the economist usually does, it shifts all social problems caused by the private sector are the responsibility of the public sector. This is the public sector's problem.
Yep.
The nation's, the government's problem.
Yeah, that's what the
why
government's
isn't
for.
the government doing something about
That's right.
what
Why
the
are they
private
not-
sector did?
Uh-huh. Right.
But the question is never, why isn't the private sector, how the private sector let this happen? Or why isn't the private sector this? Well, it costs the country money. It doesn't cost the private sector anything, which we'll see throughout this video. The private sector is left completely out of it. They are, as the economist will always put it, just natural actors. Like they're like raccoon. They're like,
I
they're
like
like
that.
animals in the wild.
They just go where the
And-
opportunity is.
Right.
Yep.
Sniffing it out.
Yep.
So these Rust Belt towns, these poor towns need to entice these businesses. They got to do things to create opportunities, but for who and for why? Okay.
Good question.
be made richer, and just how big is the challenge?
Putting in place the necessary investment is the work of decades.
Now next. Hey, isn't that the...
There's still a war on the streets and a war on the peace. For a second we should think about it.
Middlesbrough, the northeast of England. Local venue Disgraceland is hosting a show by one of the region's up-and-coming musicians, Shaq.
Still my lungs run through my iron chest, cause I inject the truth inside my body like it's science chem. Oh my.
But this is about more than just music. Shaq is hoping to change perceptions of an area that has been culturally underrepresented for decades.
Make some noise if you're having a good time.
It sounds like 10
I do
people.
this for myself, but more than anything, I'd love to change the perspective on the area. Middlesbrough's a really important place because it represents working class people.
Shaq's hometown is a reluctant poster child for regional inequality in Britain.
It's a reluctant
The northeast of
post.
England has some of the highest poverty rates in the country.
In my life, I've seen a lot of injustice. Growing up here, drugs and crime is prevalent. You can get yourself in a lot of bother, and there's people really struggling around here.
It used to be a very different picture. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Middlesbrough was a boomtown for steelmaking and shipping. But in the last few decades, all that's changed, and the steelworks have been demolished.
All shut down. All shut down. It was once a booming steel town.
The northeast of this country is certainly one of those regions that suffered very badly. A lot of heavy industry, shipping if you go up to Tyneside. When those industries left, those places were very, very badly hit, and they never really recovered.
What I was told is, you're not going to become wealthy in Middlesbrough unless you're a drug dealer or work offshore.
Middlesbrough is part of a regional inequality problem that is particularly extensive in Britain. One often oversimplified as a north-south divide.
Half the country today In the UK, it's poorer than the poorest US states of Mississippi and West Virginia, and has a quality of life which is about the same as Tennessee or Alabama.
Notice they're not
Same
mentioning.
time,
They don't mention. They don't compare themselves to third world or second world countries, but
Yeah.
to individual U.S. states.
Individual U.S. states. Interesting. You spoke English, I could understand it, but it's funny, James. Yep.
In the UK today, has prosperity, standards of living, which are about the same as Australia,
Yep.
Austria,
Another
Sweden, Canada.
other white countries.
Yeah, they're trying to be less racist, I guess, by just comparing white countries to other white places.
Oh, I see what they're doing. Yeah.
And politics.
This is
And Britain is far
wokeness.
from the only
going
country
too far.
suffering in the rich world, where income gaps between wealthy and poor regions have been on the rise for years.
Countries which tend to be very centralised and top-down in terms of governance, what we see is that only certain parts of the country
Yes.
seem to really enjoy the benefits
It's when
of
the
prosperity.
government
They tend
centralized,
to-
Zach. Only when the government centralized, or does inequality develop?
Yeah, it's funny that they're not looking at the private sector, and when they're centralized.
It's the water. It's the water. They're
Yeah.
fish. They're fish in the
Yeah.
ocean.
Yeah,
And
that's
capitalism is the water.
right.
Because the economist, like any other centrist liberal place, is just capitalist realism all the way. Won't even know the words because
Right.
you don't need to know it because it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
water. You're fish in water. So it's just like government is the thing that can exist. Anything else is just air.
Yeah.
Or
just
nature.
responding to- yeah. Uh-huh.
Responding to
leave
supply
other
and
parts
demand.
of the country
That's
behind.
right. Yeah.
So how can countries with unhealthy regional divides fix them? Well, a good place to start is addressing the tendency towards over-centralisation. Britain's system of government sees the capital give money to regional cities.
See, yeah, it's like you said. All they do is just draw the correlation, but they don't. They're spending zero time on what that. They're not making the causal link at all. Why does centralization cause?
Because they
or
love the
centralization
cause.
of government cause? Yeah, well,
yeah.
I mean, I know why,
yeah.
but like, it's just interesting that they just skim right over that part, and they're just like, well, we've noticed this trend, so that must
Yeah.
be the cause.
Well, they're pointing out, which is a fine point from a left perspective, that the way that the commons should be distributed should be allocated based on need or population, and not the political whims or at least the political demands of a parliamentary political system.
Sure.
Which is, of course, funded by money and capitalists. So, I mean, it's going to be,
Right.
it's the inequality in the economy that
And pot and paper.
creates the inequality of government representation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that
Very
would
much.
be putting that as the cause. And
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
a line that I really like, and I'm gonna try to commit to memory, so I even put it like in lit or something, is liberals hate symptoms, but they love the cause.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't attack the actual cause
That's
of,
very good.
of any
Yep.
problem because we like the actual cause. We only
Yeah.
want to do something about these symptoms, these goddamn symptoms, like crime
right. Yeah. Or
or
fighting
potholes.
hunger.
The potholes, Zach. The
Yeah.
potholes. The cause of the potholes. What causes the potholes? All the car traffic. But we love the traffic. We love driving
we
in
love
cars
traffic, that's
everywhere.
right.
So we can't do anything about
Right.
that, even though that's
Mhm.
what causes the potholes. No. The fact that the potholes aren't being fixed fast enough,
Mm-hmm.
but they're being broken so fast. Literally 2 years, and a repaved street will have cracks along the middle of it.
Oh yeah.
It is insane to me as someone who
asphalt is
bikes in
horrible.
a urban. Yeah, maybe because it's just the asphalt's so cheap.
Yeah.
But even if it was just, but it shouldn't have to be industrially like cement,
Mhm.
like for the trucking routes that they put
Right.
down huge slabs.
Uh-huh.
But I hate those because those expand and heave and contract and create gaps that my bike has to hit.
Sure. They're also louder to drive across.
Mhm.
So, but yeah.
and tell them how to spend it. This presumption that the government knows best has seen London pull away from the regions, deepening the economic divide.
Don't they know markets know best? They decided to
The market has
invest.
spoken.
When the steel mills closed, that was the market knowing best. The
Right,
government, they frame it like
Dumb
the
old
government
government.
decided to close the steel mills.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe they actually do think that it was those pesky regulations. I'm sure they're pinning it on something like
But
that.
the way they're framing this issue here is that the government's regional spending is what spurs the private sector investment. So the government isn't, the funds aren't being allocated equitably. And if they were, then business interests would be equally attracted to every area, as if that's something that's possible. But they're going to conglomerate in certain areas. So anyway.
Yeah.
Knows the impact of a London-centric approach better than most is Andy Preston. His family has lived in the Northeast 4 generations.
This guy's a man.
And in 2019, he was elected mayor of Middlesbrough.
Back in 2002, the government created a small number of city mayors that would sit above a town or a city, a borough in other words. The role of mayor is really visible. Now, in politics, visibility equals accountability. And that's great for the residents. They hold you to account, but it's only a step. We need to go much further.
To really make a difference, Andy says local mayors need more power to go with their profile.
How can you have somebody sat down in Westminster deciding what bus route should come in? It's completely insane. It's undemocratic. We have lots of restrictions. We need more autonomy, more devolution, more power.
And, crucially, more money.
No, there was a plan, wasn't it, called the East Middlesbrough bypass. It was going to be a trade-off on some land.
There's no point in having any power if you don't actually get resources with it. So what do you think of this point they're making about how devolution of power is a fix? I mean, they're framing it as a fix, not just on principle. But let's say we're talking about the principles of we want devolution in government, right? Or do we?
Yeah, I mean, I as someone who likes anarchism, I can see that in theory, but I think the way that they're forming it,
they're talking about a mayor having more power, so he can be
right.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely don't like the idea of
and framing how like someone in Parliament is deciding, or someone in London is planning the bus routes. Well, the buses are if they're inner city, then they should be planned on the national.
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking too. Like, so
American,
instead of a good route, they would just zigzag it all over. Whichever constituents.
That's how we get these. Yeah. I mean, it's terrible. In fact, America. What really makes America suck on the planning side and the inefficiencies, not just any inefficiencies, but just how fucked up it all is, and we can't get anything good, is that because power is actually so devolved in a way that we don't have regional or the national planning of any kind, unless it's Amtrak. But again, and it's like I saw an example of this with the EU's transportation plans that have been developed as the EU has matured. That if you look at the national rail systems, which are still the case, German rails and French rails, they don't actually link up. It's difficult to take a train from one end of the EU to the other. Now they're working on that by standardizing rail and making like transportation hubs. Every system, yes. Well, it's a global capitalist system. To James, but I was just for reference, I was just listening or watching when making dinner a video about Japan and how because of the population degrowth or decrease trends, as well as their housing, the zoning system is completely, or the land use planning is completely at the national level and standardized. It means every town, every city has the same 6 zones, and the cities can decide where the zones are, but what the zones do and what's allowed is determined at the national level. So it's standardized. That seems
Yeah.
like authoritarian until you realize that there's only 6 zones, so there's a lot of flexibility within each of those zones. And that's what makes the Japanese design and construction industries so flexible and creative. You can build your traditional wooden house next to a modern whatever, and you can have a business next to your house. The story itself was about there's 8 million houses in Japan that are basically, I don't know, through a national registry or such, but they're basically free or almost free. Because these are in the small towns or throughout the country outside the Tokyo metropole area that are basically empty. And, because you just have the population aging out and you have these towns that are practically half empty. And to avoid another housing crash or bubble, I think the government has just said, like, we're going to set these as free, to anyone who wants them.
Yeah. Japan has a big problem with population shrinkage because they just have historically not admitted many immigrants.
Yeah, that, and just what actually happens when you have a fully industrialized economy is people just have less kids. And I think that's a natural thing.
Yeah, more education too.
I'm not alarmed at it. It's just a matter of the economy can shrink as the population does, and that's fine.
For sure.
At least
that way. That should be okay.
I mean, there's this cultural problems maybe, and there's lots of anime that explore like that. There's one where it's just like you have fewer schools and so fewer kids, but
indeed. Continuing on.
Listen, we've got a crisis. We've got a crisis in suicide rates. We've got a crisis in addiction levels. We've got a crisis in crime. Mayors and councils need to be able to deal with this, so they need more power, but they need a lot of new money.
The central government has announced a plan to move the Treasury from London to the nearby town of Darlington. But policies like this can seem like token gestures, when making poor areas genuinely better off should arguably be everyone's concern.
If you live in Surrey or Southampton or Stockport, you care about Middlesbrough's crime rate and our underachievement at schools. You care because it costs the country a fortune every single year. The gap between rich and poor is of massive...
Wait, that's why you care? Because it costs money to imprison them and rehabilitate them, not because their lives are being thrown into the meat grinder?
Well, this is how it's argued on a liberal framing and liberal governments, including Democratic Party politics. It's all about what do things cost and how do we lower the tax burden on everyone else by providing opportunities so that we can get people out of the lumpen proletariat into the actual proletariat so that they actually do have an income and whatever, and pay those affordable rates that are defined as under $2,000 a month. Which is what we watched one of his videos with another urbanist guy. And he was looking at affordable walkable. He was trying to find the most underpopulated, or at least affordable walkable cities. And the problem was he was looking at neighborhood, or rather because of his data sets that he was using, and I think he mentions this, the cities that he covers, the most walkable cities in America, they really just have walkable neighborhoods. They're not interconnected neighborhoods, but at least if you can live in a neighborhood where it is walkable. So Rochester and Buffalo were on his list. And I do not consider those to be mass transit cities. In fact, getting around the city is car centric, but there are neighborhoods where you can walk because they are industrial cities. Sure. By industrial, I mean older. I mean they grew as when it was streetcars and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Exact same thing with Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's plenty of areas that expanded outward.
High on the list. Minneapolis was high on the list. Philadelphia was number one. and or no, Pittsburgh was number 1. Philadelphia was like
Yeah,
number 2.
I'm just
But
saying
again,
that there's areas that are walkable within those two cities, but a
yes,
lot of it just not really.
yeah,
Maybe bikeable, but not
yeah,
really
exactly.
walkable.
He was just focused on neighborhoods almost, but or rather, the city has a large number of said neighborhoods,
Yeah.
and he used the metric of under 2,000 a month as affordable.
Yeah. Wow.
Consequence to your wallet.
For countries trying to make poor regions wealthier, giving these areas more executive powers and resources is a crucial first step. But it isn't always a slam dunk.
If a region is given more power and it has bad policies, or policies that don't work, it can go into a downward spiral even faster than it would otherwise.
Avoiding this pitfall can be tricky. But one European city offers a valuable lesson.
That's all they can. That's all. Like when there are these negative consequences to the market or bad policy, and governments out of the way, it's like, well, it's just tricky. It's real toughie.
A real pickle.
Real pickle. Yeah.
Get ourselves out of.
Yes. Every Economist magazine is like this. Like, oh, it's real tricky dealing with the threat of nuclear war.
Right.
What's going on in Ukraine? It's a real pickle.
Bother.
It's a bother.
That's
It's real. We got to navigate these challenges. And it's the way every politician talks about anything that's really like, oh, it's real challenging. We have to navigate. Anything that has more than one interest group involved.
That's funny.
The breakthrough came last night as the first concrete block was removed by East German workers.
In 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down, Leipzig was a poor city, part of communist East Germany. Throughout the 90s, it was blighted by rising unemployment and poor public services.
Of Leipzig, there are vacancies for more than 900 tram and bus drivers.
But now, Leipzig has turned a corner. And for those like Michael Weikert, who remember the old days, it's been a dramatic period of change.
Weil hier war ein Wettbüro für unsere Pferderennbahn drin. Und die haben wir Pferdewetten abgeschlossen. Und jetzt kann man sehen, was sich wiederum in 30 Jahren in Leipzig verändert hat.
Michael used to run a restaurant when the wall came down. He witnessed firsthand the transformation of the city's hospitality industry.
Yeah, they're not talking to the mayor of Leipzig.
Yeah.
They're talking to the mayor of Millsboro, but not Leipzig. The restaurant owner.
The key to changing the city's fortunes has been sustained investment over time, particularly in local infrastructure, such as transport systems.
And our museums.
Man kann jetzt, 9 Jahre nach Eröffnung dieses Verkehrssystems, kann man sehen, dass überall dort, wo S-Bahn von Leipzig hinfährt, dort Häuser gebaut werden. Maßnahmen neben anderen, aber gerade für Lebensqualität und für Bevölkerungswachstum ganz entscheidend.
Germany took on regional development as a kind of national priority when the two halves of Germany were reunited.
Wait a minute, that sounds like centralization.
Yeah.
That's not local mayors getting power. What the heck?
That's well. That's why it's tricky. This is the counter. This is the setup to. So this is what the economist and the centrist does. I mean, they're taking both sides. They say like, well, on the one side, you have these towns where they need more autonomy and they need because they're hamstrung by national policy, which basically has left them to die. Meanwhile, this other country has centralized planning and or at least oversight, and they've at least in the transportation network. We're only getting a little piece, which is of course not the whole story anyway.
Of course,
where they're about like why was East Germany poorer than West Germany, or besides the fact that it's much smaller and everything else involved with the Eastern Bloc, but yeah. But at the end of the day, no problems can actually be solved, or nothing can be really knowable because it's tricky, and things can be one way and in the other way, and there's really all the principles and values are just fluid, and you can't depend on them. But what you can depend on is that market actors are efficient and
and completely left off the hook.
yes, right, and they're not the problem.
Never. Couldn't be. It's the
And they're
engine
not part
that
of it,
drives
and they're not part,
civilization.
but they are part. I mean, they're not part of the solution, but it's assumed that, like, again, it's the air that prosperity comes from private sector activity, GDP growth and all that. But what creates the GDP growth? Well, public investment and all that stuff. So if the country isn't doing it, so I mean, the argument is that in the UK, London has not invested anything in the north in the same way that DC has not invested anything in the south. They've let, but if you look hard at why that is, you'll see that there are all these corporations and rich local and regional bosses that ensure that the DC does not invest in anything. So they can control and own whatever matters, whether it be the casino in Louisiana, the private schools or the charters, whether it's, I'm still thinking of New Orleans, but let's say it's Mississippi where you have casinos on the coast, and whatever development exists is just private scams for the most part. Or prisons, basic prisons. Private prisons.
Absolutely.
They like it though.
Unification of
Yes, they do.
West Germany is a very good example of how you need to make serious scale and long-term investment decisions if you really are going to reduce inequalities between areas.
Now, who's doing the investment?
Around $2 trillion into making
Is
reunification
it the state or
work.
is it the private sector?
And Leipzig has managed to slash its unemployment rate
They're not saying.
over 20% to under 5% in 2 decades.
As you know, jobs
While
means
it
money.
and other East German cities might be on the up,
Mhm,
there's
decades.
still a 26% wage gap between East and West Germany. Not even Germany's economy could sustain the level of investment needed to revive every poor area of the country.
Couldn't they? I mean,
Well, it seems a
are
capitalist.
we just taking that as
markets
article
are
of faith here?
completely unable to do that.
Yeah.
They cannot create jobs everywhere.
Well, they can't create jobs everywhere, but they could definitely.
Or like it can't create a full employment economy. It's like saying like, well, the goal is full employment because employment is the path to prosperity. But either it's unable or also does not. It's not in their interest to have full employment.
Well, that's definitely true.
So you just run into contradictions no matter what direction you're kind of coming at problems, whether you want to devolve power and be anarchist about it, or do you want to essentially plan and be social democrats. I think full socialism is the only way out. When socialists are in government, they're creating the social and infrastructure and enough of a common economy, whether it's in housing or certain kinds of employment, to fill in the gaps at the very least. To have a state factory or two. So that will never close but then of course such factories, state owned or otherwise, are dependent on what the markets are doing in the world. So if demand goes down, then that factory can't actually, it keeps employing people, but then they're not going to produce as much, or they don't need to, so people's hours get cut, or it's guaranteed you're guaranteed full pay if you're there, so it just almost becomes welfare in a way, or UBI. But since it's not creating value, then it becomes a drain on the state's finances. Because you still need capital investment or reinvestment.
Mhm.
Germany has decided that only large cities can be made economically dynamic. In England, it's been decided that even quite small towns can become sort of economic powerhouses. I think Germany is probably more correct.
Powerhouses. I think
Deciding which areas
Germany is
decide
more
to
correct.
rejuvenate demand.
So is he's
So
saying London? So
screw the towns.
UK is they're spreading their resources out too thin? Is that what he's saying?
I'm not quite sure because he's not being direct about it. But
or he said
I get
more
the
and
idea of
just
just, you
cut
know,
off.
just let the small towns die. It seems to be his take on it. Just let them wither away. They've served their usefulness, and you know,
Or they're just not going to be. Yeah, James put it. Powerhouses.
powerhouses. So yeah, hard to say.
Demands making tough and sometimes unpopular choices. But if some areas are left to fail, it's important
Yep,
people
there you go.
aren't
Left
too.
to fail.
Parts of countries do simply fail. The important thing, I think, is that entire regions must not decline. There's got to be areas within those regions which
But
are
it's just
economically
so
dynamic.
fatalistic to talk about regions succeeding or failing as if, and then again, then framing everything as, well, what's the state's policy?
Mhm.
And they're making decisions on what's going to succeed or fail, but then using the metric of like performance, almost like the town failed. Well, how does a town fail? It fails when it's not economically growing, or when it has no
Yeah.
economy at all.
You're
What kind of
right.
economy could it have? Well, it's not allowed to have a subsistence economy because all the land and the food production's been outsourced or something like that. Or you're not allowed to farm there anymore, or it's not effective to farm.
Right.
Or there's no market
Too
to
polluted,
export to, so subsistence farming is just not efficient. You have to make a surplus if you're gonna pay for farming equipment,
Sure.
or because you have all the rents you have to pay as a farmer. So there's part of it. You can't. We're not allowed to have. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I'll back up. You can't. We're not allowed to have subsistence economies because of rents. Because value has to be extracted. So otherwise,
yeah.
you
You have
must
to
be
pay
an
your rent somehow.
exporter. You must be an exporter of something. And if you're
Right.
not going to be an exporter of any commodity, then the people are the commodities.
Mm-hmm.
At least I only say that as a subplot in an anime where it's a kind of fantasy world where you have evil banking happening where a country is put into debt and their currency is inflated, and the king, who's very corrupt and just cares about their own wealth, kind of says like, well, what other assets can we put up as leverage? Well, how about our people? Look at all those assets out there. So it's like, let's make our country a slave exporting economy, and
Yeah. Essentially.
but make sure we don't tell anybody, okay, until it's too late.
Yeah.
Because this is a fantasy world of slavery. But it's definitely
Yeah.
framed as the most evil thing.
Right. Yeah, just getting back to what he was saying too, is something kind of, it reminds me of that line from A Christmas Carol when they were talking about the surplus population and how they just better get ready
Well,
and die.
Yeah, Scrooge.
Yeah, the better hurry up and do it. And
Yeah, early
decrease the
play
surplus
Scrooge.
population.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that's how they're viewing these poor communities. Like they just need to go away. And like, where do they go? Do they go to? Are they going to be forced into the cities, the regional centers, and is just forcing a bunch of people in going to create more jobs? I don't know what they're really.
Well, it's
getting
lying.
at, right?
It's lying about what the policy of early capitalism was, which was having a surplus workforce so you can have your factories.
Yeah, just
and
run them through.
Have a labor force. That's what enclosure was designed to do, and there was resistance to it, but it was brutally crushed, and because the resistance wasn't too organized, because we didn't have good communication technologies.
For sure.
beyond newspapers and whatever. Not even telephone yet. Yeah. Something about. Yeah, let's just continue.
Yeah, sure.
Where people from a failing village or a failing small town can move to and become productive.
One way to increase
No discussion of
productivity in
why a
declining
village would be
regions
failing.
is to rethink the approach
Yeah.
to
You know.
education.
Besides the fact that it doesn't
The
have a
Pittsburgh Steelers came away
local
with their
music
7th
scene.
AFC championship.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are famous for wins on the field. And off the field, the
And
city
off the
has a
field,
game plan for success too.
The city.
Reinventing
Yeah.
itself.
That was an
as
awkward
Roby Ch,
transition, but okay.
Yeah.
by
I mean,
rewiring its universities for the future.
So basically, the first thing is you can go back here. This is called the circuit breaker.
At Carnegie Mellon University, Ava Miller belongs to Girls of Steel.
Oh, so here we go. No, I'm assuming they're going towards the let's just retrain the poor and indigent, or the rural and indigent to code.
It was a little bit of that.
That's gonna be the next one.
No, not quite. I mean, it's half. I mean, it's baked in, but it's definitely like occurring in Albany where local, the poor neighborhoods are wise to this now. Like, we're not interested in more training programs. You've done that already, and so our community college, a large community college that's multi-county, it was determined decades ago it was more efficient to just have one multi-county community college than have each county have one. Though Schenectady has retained theirs, but the rest in the area have combined into Hudson Valley Community College, and they want to open a second campus in the south end of Albany, which is the poor area, one of them, and which is, or they're saying it like it's a fait accompli. It's what people have been asking for. But maybe 15 years ago, that was the case when it was like the decision was being made. Okay, do we build an Albany community college, downtown Albany? Or do we just keep putting money into the big campus that's across the river? It's a very suburban campus. And there is a bus line that goes to it, by it. But it doesn't run on the weekends. So when I had to take a state test there, I was like, oh shit, the bus doesn't run there. Fuck, I have to drive.
I hate that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's like no one needs to go there on the weekend. They only have classes all week and whatever. But anyway, that's a separate rant. But basically, like, there's already an educational campus that was built in the last 10 years called the South Campus Center, and so what we got. So what they're covering now is to have anchor institutions like universities being the engines of investment and being like, if economic planning is to occur in any way, it's through these public-private partnerships where companies are attracted, and this is what they're framing it as, like the wild animal. The corporations are wild animals. They need bait. They need to be coaxed into building a headquarters in a city or something. And in this case, universities, because it's a pipeline of talent and educated workers that companies need, human resources, literally. And that's why it's like, and that's where the whole like teach the poor to code, or give them if we're going to pay for their education, pay so that they have the degree to be hired by these industries specifically that have been attracted by the university, basically paying a lot of their upfront costs for whatever facilities they need in the case, or their R&D in the case of nanotech, which we've done in our area. But it's been, I've seen it as a big scam at the end of the day. Like IBM moves in, and there's millions of dollars of investment that IBM puts in, and they'll hire people, sure. But what about in 10 years when Pittsburgh gets them a better offer, and they have even better facilities, and it's a better, it's just, it's so it's a temporary win for the area. to have at least some base of professionals that aren't state workers and
Sure.
can live downtown and afford $3,000 rents.
Right. Well, I mean, not to mention, there's no job guarantee for any of these people once they get out, for one. And for another thing, that the dropout rate is such that you have a sizable chunk of community college and state college students that
it's worse
do
than
not
that.
finish with any degree and
Yeah. will
just end up paying that college debt the rest of their life.
Well, it's a little worse than
So-
that, because you will have these institutions promising
Mhm.
that they will have a career.
Oh, I know that they will say
But
that.
it will not be in writing.
in reality,
Which
of
was the
course not.
case with the South End Campus Center, is that you had multiple institutions promising or saying verbally committing that they will have classes there, including the community college. And then after the year or so, they dropped out. They stopped. They ended their commitment. So, and it's also a matter of what actually people would come there for. So people, where the success of the campus center is in that there is a commercial kitchen. So Wheels on Wheels is operating out of it,
Mhm.
or able to use as a way station. You have English for Spanish speakers class, GED classes. Those are what's popular because that was the greatest need. So you had the imposition of what people need, which is a coding degree, or in this case, it was the nanotech college setting up a simulation clean room so that people can take classes there
Mhm.
and then use that as an entry point to eventually go to the nanotech college and get into nanotech. And that's how we'll get high earner incomes into, but really it's more about drawing, again, just like the old working class jobs of last century. It's enough to get people out of the ghetto, but it does not solve the fact that there's a ghetto.
Right.
It just allows people to earn enough so that they can live in a suburb or
Yeah.
move to the bougie or the hipster neighborhood.
Yeah.
And because it's all about it getting out.
Yeah.
But then-
It's addressing the symptoms without ever looking at the cause.
because they love the causes.
Right. Yep. Absolutely true.
And then the cause will be on its face, like the city doesn't allow enough types of businesses. It's now allowing me to do my business in the neighborhood the way I want. And but I could if I went to Latham or a suburb, because they don't have no rules, or as long as I have a
Right.
parking lot that's big enough.
Right.
Something like that. Because that's what people can interact with and see, but they don't.
Mhm.
Because we're not going to challenge the whole banking system while our local news media is like, oh, look at this great opportunity. Or sorry, it's something I'm going to read on my show where like this Belarusian immigrant who just got out of SUNY Albany, he's 27 and he now owns like 6 properties worth millions. He just bought a $2 million building in Troy. And the article ends with him saying, like, this country is so great. There's so many opportunities. I'm like, where the fuck did you get the money for all this?
Uh-huh.
I mean, it says, oh, he just started with a $40,000 rental in Colony. I'm like, well, where did he get the 40 grand? Was that a
Good
mortgage?
question.
How did he
Yeah.
get the mortgage? How did he
Yep.
get pre-financing for that? Just out of
Where's it coming from?
college? Fuck off. Something
Yeah.
shady's happening here. And
Oh,
he has
God.
to pretend that it's like, oh, anyone could do this. Anyone can become a real estate mogul. And he's not even forming a company. He's just doing it.
Yeah, it's like those stories that I always tell of the millennials figured out
Yeah.
how to get out of debt, and it turns out they got gifted a property that they rented out, and
Yeah.
that's how they made their money.
But business reviews are smarter. They will leave that out. They will not get to that. They will not say where they got their startup capital. They'll just say
Mhm.
they're young up and comer, and
Right.
they're literally outbidding or making better offers than real estate corps that are in Florida.
All right. Well, we should probably speed this up a little bit if we're going to get through
Yeah,
some
we're
more
running out
videos.
of time. Don't worry, the gift ones
A
are short.
robotics training program.
Okay.
It's part of a blueprint to make Pittsburgh a flourishing hub for this technology.
If you're into robotics, it's one of the things that can most help the world. It's something that
It's gonna help the
anyone could benefit from.
Anyone.
In recent times,
Anybody?
Pittsburgh's universities have focused on specializing
Wish I
in
had me a
robotics
robot.
and AI, with the aim of creating a pool of graduates like Ava, skilled in these sectors.
Pittsburgh is an exciting place to grow up. A lot of my friends' grandparents worked in the steel industry, and it was a lot dirtier, and it wasn't as innovative as it is now.
Pittsburgh.
And as we all know, we don't need steel anymore.
Right. Yes, now we just, I don't know what holds up buildings anymore. Wishes? Prayers? Oh, man.
Symbol of the power generated along the Monongahela.
Pittsburgh is another city which built its fortunes on the steel industry, only to see them reversed with the
And a
collapse of
labor,
heavy industry in
movement.
many parts of the rich world.
Mm-hmm.
But today, the growing pool of robotics graduates are helping Pittsburgh to create a new cluster economy. With over 100 robotics
Cluster
companies,
economy.
the city is beginning to boom again.
Yep.
Over the last 30 years, unemployment in Pittsburgh has fallen from 8% to under 5%. The part
Does that compare with the national average? Or,
And that's because in the robotics industry that's the, what was it, 4%?
yeah, they're
So they
slicing the
fill-
unemployment in half. Like, really? Did they fill that many jobs? I kind of doubt it. I mean, I know they're working hard on the self-driving cars, but that's going nowhere. And
Right, exactly. that's what they showed. They literally showed B-roll of a robotic car. These are the industries of the future, which will benefit everyone, as we know.
right.
I mean, she's just a naive college student. I'm not
Yeah,
running
yeah.
on her,
opportunities to graduates,
Yeah, yeah.
giving them good reason to stay put.
We produce more students than we actually have jobs for, and so it's created this.
Wait.
Yeah. That floored me when I watched this before.
Doesn't that kind of give away the game?
We have more jobs than we have students.
No, there's nothing more more students than jobs.
Oh yeah. Oh right. Sorry.
We don't have jobs
doesn't
for all
floor
our
me.
students.
That's another point of outrage.
That's
to
not
say
good.
Half of
We're
your students will be unemployed. Or they will
Right, or
not,
have
they
to
will be
go
work. They'll be at Starbucks
Or do other
unionizing.
things. Yeah.
They'll be at
Oh
Starbucks.
my God.
Or flipping burgers.
Ready-made work pool for innovative companies to expand and create the ecosystem that we have.
But
Making
creating a pool
robots
of
that can
highly
dunk.
skilled graduates
Yeah,
doesn't
that's right. I
always
was thinking,
mean
I
they
wish I
stay
had a
to
basketball
benefit the
robot.
area.
Wow.
It can lead to a brain drain.
If you make a local population more skilled,
Yes.
there is, of course, a danger that many of them will leave to get the sorts of jobs they want.
So from this guy so far, it's let the countryside die, and don't make people too smart, or they'll stab you in the back.
Or rather, it may not be worth investing in people's education because
investing in
they
it.
can go anywhere, which of course is the problem with communist states. The Eastern Bloc educated all their citizens, and they went to the West to get better pay, or at least they were literally told, "We'll pay you double, even what our doctors would make." For you to leave, so we can say, well, basically, so we can deprive the Eastern Bloc of doctors. But it was also like, the Eastern Bloc was glad to educate people to not stay, because they weren't doing it for the sake of their own local economies. They were fine with everyone going back to where they came from.
In other areas.
One way to manage this risk of brain drain is to make an area attractive to
drain.
large companies and employers.
I so cringe
as
whenever I hear
Pittsburgh has
that.
done for some of the world's biggest tech companies.
Because it's a relief of the market, and how, like, look at how people are free to move to where they want to, or where they can get the best deal for themselves.
Yeah, like,
Act
isn't that
in their
supposed to
own
be the idea?
act in their own self-interest, regardless of wherever they were educated or wherever they came from. All these things are meaningless, totally meaningless, because the market forces are, in the self-interest.
Pushing people
That
around.
is
Yeah.
sublime. That is godliness.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though it's the market driving people out, but yeah.
Brand that calls Pittsburgh home.
It was a
Apple
choice. It
has
was a
its eye
choice. It was
on
their choice to do
Uber
that.
is totally pulling a
Right.
kit from Knight Rider and introducing its self-driving cars to the streets of Pittsburgh.
Although the arrival of large prestige firms can price some residents
Who the
out,
fuck gives
it's
anything
generally
about
good
Knight Rider?
news for
Who
struggling
knows what
areas.
Knight Rider is?
Anymore. Maybe perhaps economist readers. I kind of get the feeling they're,
okay.
an older class of people. But
Well, these are videos, so these are essentially to me
That's
like
true.
PragerU for college,
basically.
Because that's what when I read The Economist for a year, it was kind of, I wasn't really going to I was like I was giving liberalism a chance to convince me. It was kind of their last chance. Like, this is supposed to be the best magazine with the best information, the best arguments. This is your last chance to get me off of the path of socialism.
Right.
I've been, the gateway drug, I've been gateway drugged.
That's right.
And it was, if anything, it pushed faster.
You've
It
been
pushed me
bread
faster.
pilled, yeah.
Yes. It bread pilled me even harder.
That's right. Yeah, it was pretty much the same with me, and I used to listen to a bunch of economist podcasts, and it was basically the same sort of thing. It was like, oh, it's interesting to know what these people think, but yeah, you're not getting me back.
Becoming champion companies have the heft in many cases to not only hire lots of local people, but also to train them and to influence the rest of the region's labor market.
And yet they'll always complain
From
about how the
resealing
labor
to
force isn't
redistributing
trained
power
enough
and
for them
resources,
to
there are
employ.
various traditions
And they
right.
can't afford to
that
employ
provide
train
areas
anyone.
more appetizing
That's right.
and richer. But with no
Companies or
reliable
mice?
catch-all approach, there's
See
a growing
the
hunger
programming
for
they're
new
doing?
ideas.
Yes.
So how about luring new residents, not with a better job, but a better life?
Oh, isn't
when I
that part
told
of it?
people
Okay, yeah.
Better life?
You'll love
in
this.
Tulsa, and people-
You'll love this.
Okay, cool.
So,
be like, where?
where? Tulsa?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to Tulsa, but at least
So
I've
these
heard
are the
of it.
most these are the
Jeez.
most basic bitch people that
Great.
they talk to talk about now the demand side, I guess, instead of the supply side. But this is just essentially, you'll see.
Welcome to Tulsa, Oklahoma, now home to Jonathan and Haley, who recently gave up bright lights of Houston, Texas, to put down roots here.
The bright lights of Houston.
Jeez. How sad. You've never been to Oklahoma? It's the neighboring state. I mean, I know Texas is big.
Tulsa, where's
so-
that?
Yeah, right. How do you not? I mean, I've heard of
They're
the
just-
small fly speck
So guess
cities
this.
in states
These
around
are
me,
these are the digital nomads, or they're the state. No, what do you call it? Telecommuting workers. Teleworkers.
okay.
So they can live anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So they're totally free to go where where the incentives push them or pull them. And in this case, Tulsa was basically saying, we'll pay 10 grand of your basically your housing costs. Which is a small price to pay considering the property taxes they'll be collecting.
Friends, where
True.
Chandler has to go to Tulsa. I think that's the extent of it.
Tulsa, Oklahoma? The Sooner State.
That's that was the reaction we get.
Yeah, and then we just tell them, well, you're just gonna have to convince.
Because
them
we
to
only
see it. You
watch
have to come see
Netflix,
it.
and that's
Yeah,
all of our
basically.
media diet.
And the
It's
secret
just
to getting
Netflix.
Jonathan and Haley to
Where
migrate,
Friends
paying them.
was it's
The
very
city
popular.
is now rebranding itself as a honeypot for remote workers.
Honeypot.
Offering them perks
They
to move there.
use honeypot as a
privately funded
positive.
program called Tulsa
Yeah.
Remote lures
Yeah,
new
zero
residents with
self-awareness.
$10,000 worth of housing, free workspaces, and other incentives. The idea is
And
to
martinis.
attract people to the city, like a
Yeah.
hub attracts entrepreneurs.
Let's go directly to creators.
Workers are like
and
entrepreneurs.
let's invite them to collaborate.
We are now 7 years into that business. and
Those
I'm back
glasses
home
are
in Tulsa
so
because I
fucking
love
big.
Tulsa.
Is it just me?
The hope
Or
is
glasses.
that the Tulsa Remote program
Black
Oh,
will
the
help
glasses.
kickstart a
Yeah,
bigger
those were some
transformation.
big specs.
You have a lot of folks that haven't come through Tulsa Remote, that they just themselves have come here because they've started to hear, a buzz about something happening here.
It's a bold new idea for poor areas to make themselves
They're not
richer.
hearing the buzz.
And although the program only started in 2018, Tulsa Remote says it's delivering bang for buck.
The Tulsa Remote program has made a huge impact on the Tulsa economy. We know that for every dollar that we've spent on that $10,000 incentive, there's been a near $14 return on investment to the city.
For every dollar they spend honeypotting
Other
remote
places
workers,
have followed Tulsa's
they
lead
get
in
14.
trying to change their fortunes
And property
by
taxes, I
enticing
assume.
new inhabitants with cash
Yeah,
incentives. Over 80 cities in America now offer similar schemes.
But just schemes. It's
while
it's
all
dog eat
sounds
dog.
promising,
It's
so far
competition
the
in the
share of America's
marketplace.
population who have
There'll be
moved
winners and
hasn't
losers.
really changed since the pandemic.
My sense is that remote work, though important, is a secondary form of work and not a huge impact in most places.
And it doesn't really matter.
Whatever the methods, it's clear that reinvigorating long-neglected regions is an enormous challenge for
It's a big
wealthy
challenge.
countries in the current
Here we are.
economic
We're up
climate.
to the challenges.
What's less apparent is the political will to take on that challenge. And some say that's a big mistake.
For me, the dangers inherent in allowing some places to fall behind isn't simply that it's morally wrong, but it is also a waste of talent. Giving the same opportunities to people from around the country to achieve their full potential will be good for the national economy as a whole.
America and Britain have been all too aware of their regional inequality problems for a long time, and they continue to suffer the damaging political consequences of not fixing them. A backlash which may yet get worse.
When people start to sense that their pride in place is being undervalued, they themselves will start to react against the institutional system.
They're just showing the riot cops, not the protest.
Yeah, right.
But here's something just hit me though with this, that usually what liberals are, maybe it's a conservative thing of completely separating government from the people or the country or something, like it's an outside force. That's usually what conservatives do. Liberals will talk about the public and private sectors as the same thing, actually. The public-private partnership is like, it's when they say it's the, they're being very, we were saying it's invisible to them because, well, not because, but like what I'm just trying to describe what they're doing, but
yeah,
the public and the private are the same.
Right.
The economy is just one thing, and whatever the government's policy is, the government has a responsibility of not allowing people to fall behind and care about inequality, and the private sector is merely its tool for employing people and building wealth.
Yeah,
right. It's so in a way, like liberal politics is all about, and this is what conservatives, it drives them crazy, because it's like it takes away agency from the private sector by saying they don't really matter. They're just following self-interest. They're a force. It's just a tool in our toolbox almost, that as policymakers. And of course that drives a lot of people crazy, because it takes away even the small business owner's agency or the corporate executive's agency. And they're like, where's my freedom to make decisions on what will win and lose and what my company's going to do? Because state policy or how we're going to partner and get funding and exploit people, exploit a city is dependent on that, and the integration of state and corporation. It's fascism. So, and that's what we have.
True.
They are in fact the same thing. So as revolutionaries or radicals, it's like, yes, we can attack both, and we should. In fact, we have to see them as the one thing.
One and the same. Yeah.
And that kind of leads, like, if you're going to argue, let's say this is where I'll be an inter-revolutionary. If we're going to argue about any kind of entrism, even being elected independently to local office, you might as well be arguing that we also need to be entryists in the corporate sector, climb the corporate ladder, and then once we're running the country, the corporation, then we'll make it better.
Sure.
or we'll switch gears and make it less exploitative. Just as the state, it's like, well, once I'm a congressman, once I'm a senator, I'll make things better. But of course, the
Right.
system then changes you. So, grassroots, revolutionary organizing,
Yeah.
independently of all of it.
Well,
making
yeah,
a third way, a real third way.
And also holding elected office, not necessarily to change things, but to prevent even worse people from making even worse policies, or to be in the right position when revolutionary actions take place, where you
that's
can
my argument. That's
hold back the pigs.
That's always my
basically.
argument. But it's not just a matter of preventing bad things. You can do good things and develop revolutionary potential by allowing it. If you're on the council or the mayor and you have the ability to tell the police force not to bomb the local commune or not to send the state police or call them in to, you can be disruptive. You can be disruptive as well. And that's a book that was being read by a fellow Green called The Bolsheviks and the Duma. The Bolshevik and the other communists had people in the Russian Duma under the Tsarist government, and they had a part to play in how things developed. They got people out of jail. They weren't numerous, but they did some good things. But and ultimately, which led to the state's downfall.
Right. Absolutely.
How do floating heart emojis for what Dan said?
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, because I'm using Restream, all the cool Twitch stuff that you see on other channels, I can't do. So yeah,
Where's our
you'll
floating?
Just have to pretend.
Where's our floating shit?
Where's our emote wall? Right.
Yeah, emotes. Where's our super chat dings?
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't sit well with me that, like, if you pay $5, your comment gets read, and you get.
Yeah, I hear you.
We only
then
have,
again, that's how a lot of people get paid. So, but yeah, we have James. And he does his comments for free. So, all right, here we go. Finishing up.
Women of the United States are forgotten no more.
And in a democracy, that is potentially a very dangerous thing to face.
We need to invest now in the things that will help bridge that gap between rich and poor, because as that gets worse, everybody pays.
Fear the poor.
Everybody
Fear their
pays.
uprising.
Everybody pays.
Hello, I'm Tom Standage, Deputy Editor at The Economist.
One
of
way
course he
or
is.
another.
Tom Standage. Looks like a lovely bloke. All right. Well, there's one down, man.
Okay, so we have the gift economy stuff. That's probably the best since we are half an hour here.
Cool. Yeah, I see these are all very small, short videos. So, do you want to start with just the Tree and Julia gift economy?
Yeah. So as to my previous comment, like, oh, I couldn't find good gift economy videos. We had to go with this French commune guy, doing his homesteading. Well, I actually found some good ones. So I don't know. I just changed the wording, and I got some good stuff.
Cool.
Display a concept, a radical form of love, a regenerative system that
There's a bit of humanity. There's a bit of
here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Korean. Okay.
Oh, generated. She's just that out there.
What? Okay, we'll just turn off the captions. We'll start that over again.
So there's a bit of humor
display
too.
a concept, a radical form of love, a regenerative system that can shift your state of mind into a new paradigm. Gift economy.
I like that. It means they're not taking it so goddamn too seriously,
Yeah, I like it.
Is to simply give things away.
Some Zoomer humor.
To others without
But they're still
expecting
common
any
people.
payment in return.
I like
live
it.
within a system where everyone's practicing this, you get exactly what you need and experience the joy of giving at all times.
You may already be familiar with places or events that operate on a principle of gift. A common example that a lot of people know about is Burning Man. It's a huge festival that operates without any form of currency. So you have thousands of people showing up.
That's not
with
quite
something
true.
that they'd like to give to the community. So someone could be like, I'm going to make
People
pancakes
pay
full
tens
time.
of thousands of
Someone's like,
dollars
I'm
for
gonna give out back
exclusive
massages.
tents and
I'm gonna make
stuff
sure
like
everybody
that.
has water when they need
Well,
it.
pause.
And you get to flow through this.
Because I was I don't know if by video or just reading something that was kind of clarifying something that I didn't know about Burning Man. Was the original burners were doing it in a Seattle park, and they were
Oh,
basically
really?
told you can't burn shit here, or inside city limits. So it's like, well, where can we go where we can do whatever we want? Um, and I guess they have to go to Death Valley, which is why Burning Man is there in the flattest, literally the flattest place in the world, where there's no water, literally, not
Yup.
not even a drop of water.
Mm-hmm.
It's so anything is possible there, and you're truly outside of any American or governance. So similar to Slab City, though at least Slab City has trees.
True.
And maybe you can somehow maybe collect some water during certain periods of time. But Burning Man, yeah, I mean it's more like there's the upfront cost of being there because it is out in the middle of Nevada. Which is a problem, but it's like there must be, like the Rainbow Festival, you probably could do it somewhere closer to or within the Ecotopia strip on the West Coast. Which is why, all the people doing it just do it on the coast. I mean, surely there's some big thing of land that could be shared, donated, whatever, or with the people who do have money could buy it. But instead, they go out to the middle of fucking nowhere. Yeah. So I think it's just when they started the switch, it was out of convenience that they would not have to ask for permission or permit to do anything, to do their thing.
Sure.
And it just grew from there as yuppies and tech bros kind of joined in.
Right.
So I think they created the inequality and the cost barriers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was big names. Like I remember hearing that it was like $20,000 to get into Paul Oakenfield's private DJ tent, and these sorts of things. Ridiculous.
Yeah, then they monetize it. Yeah, but originally the burners were, radical egalitarian, moneyless people. So
yeah, I'm sure a lot of that still does take place, but still.
In a state of abundance, just trusting that you will receive from what people truly want to give. Everyone brings what they'd like to give, and everyone can live in a state of abundance.
This is how it works in most eco-villages or communal land projects. One person loves to cook, another person loves to knit sweaters. They don't necessarily trade a sweater for a meal, but if you live in a well-functioning community, you can trust that all your needs will be provided for. The amazing thing about this is that you get to work for love.
And if you do something with love, then you will love to do it. So when I'm living in an intentional community or a rainbow gathering, I could stand and stir a pot of soup for 8 hours because I know I'm doing it for people that I love and care about. If I was getting paid to do that for some kind of job or something, I'd probably hate doing it the entire time, like 8 hours of cooking. But if I get to do it from a space of generosity, I can feel proud about it the entire time and really enjoy the work. And for me, I really feel like when I operate in this way, I enter a whole new state of mind. You gain a natural euphoria and connectivity to the people around you. We begin operating in the way that nature was always meant to, in this symbiotic exchange of nurture.
A tree doesn't charge a squirrel for its acorns, right? It just gives and gives. And sometimes that squirrel buries an acorn and forgets about it. And boom, you have a new tree. The truth is, this concept is pretty foreign to people. Imagine Christmas, but always, right? But maybe you're inspired by this concept. So, if you are, feel free to give more. Go beyond your level of normal generosity and give, and shock people with kindness. We have not forgot about you guys too. We're also going to give away one of these custom-made earring boxes to you guys on YouTube, a random commenter.
So the world began gifting eternally. But the fifth dimension couldn't be reached that easily.
Was there more to this? I forget.
It looks like that's it.
Good.
That's fun though.
Yeah. Let's see. There's two other gift economy ones. They're a little more formalistic, but I think I just put a link in that's I think probably better.
Okay.
Fun. So it's Alfie. So what's mentioned is like the the perverse incentives of work, and Alfie Kohn is one of the big critics of that in education. And it's an old clip, or it's a full clip of him on Oprah.
Okay.
And so this is doubly fun because you get some classic Oprah and her format.
Classic Oprah.
With someone who basically thinks like we do in the world of 90s daytime television. He's so out of place. But it's sort of the fun.
That's awesome. Cool.
So you'll see.
And hello, Amazing Wolf Skeptic. Good to see you again. Doing well. Looking at some ideas on Utopia.
And in the decades since, Alfie Kohn has written more books on school reform, against charter school reform, pointing at and doing many lectures and talks on basically what competition is bad,
Gotcha.
and he's one of the guys where you kind of got me towards socialistic thinking to say like, yeah, like competition in any form, even the positive kind, it's pretty perverse incentives.
Gotcha.
Zero-sum games and all that.
All right, take it away. Oh,
so we've got to formulate a talking point, I think, out of that line to respond to anyone. It's like, why don't these people want to work? And we usually say, well, it's just a matter of we're not being paid enough, right? We're not being paid livable wages, sustainable wages. But we also know that it's like, well, the work is meaningless and it has no purpose. But I think beyond that, beyond complaining about like the incentive structure of the pay, we can also say, well, if you have to pay us to do this work, it must suck. Like why do you think we want to do something for pay?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we need to be paid? Or why do we have to earn all this money to do anything? To do anything. And
Right.
and I think the liberal kind of wins this, because you can look at the people who are unemployed or lumped in proletariat, let's say, and they are not working. And this is like something with a lot of men in America, regardless of age or race. Men are
Right.
working less. And I listened to a long lecture by someone who looked at the data, and he wrote a book of 5 years ago about this. It's a big crisis. Men are working less. Now, he does not consider that they just don't have to work anymore. And that's never like, and if we were given the choice, we wouldn't work for wages. We wouldn't take jobs if we don't have to. We'd rather hang out, fish, and hang with some beers with the guys. Regardless, let's say we're talking about Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
And he points out like, some that they're able to because of let's say applying for disability and getting it, and that the cases for like applying for disability, like because many people can qualify for it, and if you can, you should apply and get that a functional UBI.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll point out that it's also a poverty income, and it precludes you making more than that. But what I'm going is that there's the double standard that people need to work to have purpose, and if they're not working, they're losers, and they're ghetto, and they need help, and it's like they're hopeless, because people do need money to live, to either it's food or rent or just whatever luxuries, and people will. And ghetto becomes worse because it's a high crime area, because you're going to rob whoever working people who do have an income, who have more than you, and they're close targets, and they're easy targets because they're not going to be armed and they're not going to have police protection. If anything, if you call the cops, they'll shoot everybody. So it's it's hard to dissuade people who are really stuck in that mode, but I think we need to work in. I just really like that line of, if the work sucks, or rather, if we have to, if the work is like, if the pay is the point of working, why do we want to do this work? And of course, the answer is, well, you have to be able to pay rent, right? You have to have
right.
money to do anything. And then
Right.
if you ask
Totally.
why, then you'll probably get the stop asking so many questions, or
Yeah.
just cuz, or don't be stupid, or whatever. Or maybe I haven't done that with a liberal yet, I think, and maybe I need to do more of that. Why do people need to be working? So they can pay rent, or so they can provide for their families. Well, why do they need money to provide for their families? And then they'll get to, because of the way things are, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of fatalism just makes
throw
me
your
want
hands up.
to throw my hands up and say the conversation is over. Shut up, and complaining about people who don't want to work, because really, you're not going with the program. People need to be wage slaves. Basically, you're complaining people don't want to be wage slaves, and I'm not going to say. I guess we need a retort to say, I'm not going to be mad at people for not wanting to be wage slaves and pay $8 for a dozen eggs. Oh, is that what all the memes are about?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I go into my grocery store and a dozen eggs I think are still $4. So or less.
There was some big producer that they had to destroy a lot of product because of salmonella or some sort of outbreak. So temporarily.
So there's an area in the country
where
there's an area. There's some region in the country where there's been a spike of price. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. The last time I was grocery shopping, I usually buy a half dozen. It's still $2.50, and
right.
That's the price of a muffin. But not like the eggs are big, and when you make the eggs, it's like eggs cost more than steak. You shut the really? In West Virginia, is that really the case, James?
Maybe in places they do, but
okay, man.
It's been a few weeks now. You'd think that they would have gotten the supply back online again.
Well, here in Albany, New York, the steak is $10 a pound. The eggs are $2.50 for a half dozen or something. I mean, it's gone up 50 cents, but that's the inflation. The inflation was 50 cents.
Sure.
I mean, maybe it depends on what kind of eggs you're getting.
Sure. Oh shoot, we're getting very close to the time I need to quit. So let's finish up this video.
You wage slave.
That's the truth. Oops.
What the hell are you doing?
Picked the wrong one. Sorry about that.
You're looking on Instacart?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to see how much eggs were in my area.
Okay.
But I accidentally hit the wrong tab. Sectional nature is what he's getting.
Yeah. What are we gonna get for are we going to get? What are we gonna get for the gold star if it's not?
Yeah. So he's saying you can do nice gestures for people. It just it shouldn't be upfront. Behave or you won't get your thing.
It shouldn't be a transaction and commodified. She's popular because she was so authentic to all these other housewives and women.
That's right.
Which is such a paradox to me, because when I see Oprah, I think, God, what a fake person.
I know, right?
But like the way she was talking, she was having
didn't add anything.
Talk. She's adding other people talk, and she keeps having to make this almost like a segue, not a segue, but just like
totally unrelated
trying
thing.
to change the conversation.
What about the gold stars?
Stars.
No.
Yeah, and even the other woman, the book club, or maybe she has to mention that, but the fact that it's like, oh yeah, you're in my book club, and you get social capital or whatever you get, and you're not getting a gold star or $1. So obviously her book club attendees are not doing it for money. So
That's
obviously
true.
there must be other things to
true.
motivate. But I think assuming kids are lizard brained and they can only comprehend these transactional motivations, which is kind of insulting to say. Then okay, the rest of our economy operated this way. Everyone's just an immature asshole.
Yeah.
And of course, that's where every conversation about social problems, eventually, with any type of person who isn't a socialist, will say, "Yeah, people are assholes. Or they're dumb.
People are jerks. No one will pick up the trash. No one will clean the sewers.
Yeah.
No one.
They're
will
not
do this
saying.
and that.
And by the way, the people who are my friends, they're not saying that as a end of conversation ender or whatever. They're just kind of, it's where their mind goes to first, and then
they just can't comprehend.
Maybe it actually opens to, well, what do we do? I mean, they're not closed when they say that.
Well,
They're
that's
just
good.
saying it's an impediment because
Yeah.
our system treats everyone like they're dumb and encourages it.
Mm-hmm.
Encourages
Yeah.
it. That's the
Yeah,
big
yeah.
thing.
Just
That's
do
the
your
thing
task.
that's like,
Keep going.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So let's.
Well, it's
Oh
been
God,
a.
you gotta keep. You can't keep doing this to me, Zach.
I'm so sorry.
Starting so
I'm so sorry.
late.
I've been busy. Like I, had a bunch of running around after seeing my kids today, and I have this Lefties Award show that I'm putting stuff
Okay,
together
you're putting
for.
time to that. Should we switch?
So
Would it help at all if we switch to a different evening, or would it not matter?
yeah, we could do a different evening. We could do Mondays instead, and I could do my other theory thing on Sunday if that works for you.
Okay. Yeah, long term. That's
Yeah.
what we'll do.
Sure.
Because my Mondays are pretty clear.
Yeah, my Mondays are pretty routine usually.
So I suggested joining you at least for Zen reading tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll do that
see.
tomorrow. It'll be a good time.
Maybe I want to work on my podcast, my show, which I didn't finish
Yeah,
today.
it's up to you. I'll send you the link, and if you decide to join,
we'll see what I'm feeling like after I have dinner with my one of my colleagues.
We are in the thick of the chapter on slavery, so it's a banger.
Oh.
Yes,
A banger. Yes.
Yeah.
Will I get a gold star?
You know what? You're just gonna have to wait and see. I'm not gonna make the relationship transactional.
When watching that, I was thinking about how my nieces are being raised, and I think they do always say like we'll get some ice cream, but I think they make sure, and I try to pay attention, like they're not offering it as a reward, or it's just a treat for just being along. It's like.
Yeah.
It's just
That's totally different.
It's an extra thing, not a. Though sometimes I think it feels like it is like be good or you won't. Oh, actually, no, they will actually. They don't make it as a deal. They just use it as a threat. Like you won't get ice cream if you keep acting out.
Right.
So it's more punitive that way rather than the punished with rewards.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, there is the implied threat in be good and I will give you something good, because then of course it's if you're not good then you don't get the thing, so it's
so
you're
maybe
punished then.
so maybe my sister-in-law is guilty of this. My mother certainly is. My mother certainly is, and that makes me wonder how much she did that with me. And I think even as a kid I disliked it if she did do it. I didn't like being bribed. I felt insulted even as a 6-year-old or something. It's just like, no, let's do stuff for doing the sake of it. Or maybe it just didn't feel that way because I was I was so docile, I guess they didn't have to threaten me. or rather, no, it was only when I was a teenager that I had to be threatened with losing video game privileges. Because in that case, I sort of depended on the main TV. But there was a week where my father took the GameCube because my homework was slipping because I didn't give a shit anymore about getting A's. I'd reached a point, age 16, I think, where I'm just like, I don't care about getting A's anymore. It's not guaranteed anymore. It's like I wasn't getting them since middle school, really. I mean, I was getting some, but like I was always getting 90 or 89, and the fact that 89 was a B and I wasn't getting A's anymore. And it's just like, well, I'm not here to just get A's. And obviously I'm doing well and I get everything and I'm only making little mistakes and this is costing me 10 points, It just seemed like bullshit. So it's like I'm not going to care about getting more than 90 anymore. So if I'm not getting A's or I'm getting a B minus or a C, God forbid, my parents were kind of upset. But it's also a matter of homework and just like I'm missing it. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't care about math. It's on my interest and I'm just going through motions at this point.
Sure.
But then I took an AP math class and then it was like, yeah, I was totally motivated to do everything. And it was just a matter of I just needed to be interested in what I was doing.
Yeah, right.
And that's the case I'll take with any kid.
Yeah, that often is the case.
Well, I love the mini discs. The mini discs got scratched less and they were more durable.
That's true. That's true. GameCube was a really nice system. That is for sure.
Yeah, I loved it. It was new and fresh. Okay, anyway, you gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go. Just FYI, I just tried to get onto 3lefts.news and it's not allowing me to.
So, okay. I'll see
So,
if something's wrong.
might
It's
wanna
been
check
a
that
long
out.
time since it's been a while since I've checked it.
But it says the website sent back unusual and incorrect credentials. This may happen when an attacker is trying to pretend to be 3lefts.news.
Yeah. I'll have to.
It might just be on my end, but I just thought I'd let you know.
No,
Oh, yeah.
it's throwing it up when I'm trying to do the WordPress.
Cool.
What to do about it?
Well, normally
you
could
this
find...
is something I need to talk to my my host. That's
okay.
Where I gotta go to.
Cool. Well, normally you all could find Dan's stuff on 3lefts.news, but for the time being, it's out of commission.
But it should be on any podcast app.
Yeah, it should still be on any podcast feeds. You can always look it up. Go to Pod News. You can find you can type in 3 Lefts and find out, the link to your favorite player.
But until I get this sorted, I can't upload. So I think I may not worry about editing my show then. Although I should, because then it needs to go on the Pacifica network.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think anyone's downloading it. It's not general anymore. But anyway, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to be interviewing Tuesday the people from the Satanic Temple in Albany. And I hope to at least to have a rhythm of one actual interview per month and maybe 2 episodes, or at least one, where I talk about general issues and how neoliberal bullshit affects Albany residents.
Absolutely.
Like Airbnb.
Well, yeah.
All right, bye.
All right, have a good one, Dan. Thank you as always. Well, that was Dan Plaat of the 3 Left Show. We will quickly raid into someone who is on. What do you think, James? Don't get in the. What are you doing? We are on a last-minute surprise appearance by the eye of Amanda.
Hi.
Jet. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about doing Jet as well. Don't forget, you can go vote in the Lefties Awards right now. I'm going to send you that. I'm going to put the link out one more time before we raid, and then we will begin the raid. So you got to go to Facebook and follow this link.
I'm not allowed to go on Facebook anymore.
Well, I never said that. So go vote in the Lefties.
Hello?
This channel, Bread Theory, is up for a couple nominations. So if you do so enjoy my content, I encourage you to pull the lever for my show. But yeah, the point of the Lefties is just to showcase leftist creators across the different platforms and mediums and stuff like that. Thank you, James. I really appreciate your vote. And then, of course, award night. Everyone who was nominated will get their little 7-second reel in the show to showcase their work. And then the winners will get an extra little design of them accepting the award. That's their big prize. That and bragging rights. But like I say, the main purpose is to showcase all kinds of cool leftist stuff that's happened over the past year, some of which you may have missed. I know there's a lot of people that were nominated this year that I'd never even heard of, so that's always an exciting part of the whole show deal. All right, let's raid into Jet. I'm going to have to reset my stream manager because it's behind, and we will start raiding the channel. Thank you all for joining me. Hope to see you tomorrow night for Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. We are in the chapter about slavery. It is a tough one, but we're getting through it, and it is important to not look away. It's important to know this stuff. So I'd love to have you all again. Mall walking is also important. Mall walking is also important. We've gotten into that as well lately, but maybe one day we'll do a live mall walking stream. Wouldn't that be fun? Could take you all to the Mall of America. Ooh.
Hope you guys
guys are staring down on me.
I know, right? as we pass the fourth Caribou Coffee, and
There are 5 Caribou.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5. The 5th Caribou Coffee, and the second Victoria's Secret, all within the same mall. So anyway, see y'all tomorrow night. Have a great night, everybody. Here goes the raid. Not quite ready yet, though.
Oh.
So watch your mouth.
Get out! You can't be part of the show.
You can be part of the show. You can be part of the show anytime. It's a standing offer.